Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is TheSketchMonkey here. I'm back at Audi Denver to have a look at the 2023 Audi S5 Sportback. This is an absolutely beautiful design, and the thing is, I think I would actually go with the four-door version for the S5 because it brings you more practicality, and I also think it looks fantastic with the sloping roofline that we have here. So what we're going to do in this video is, of course, have a look at this design, the front end design, the side, the rear, the interior, and then we're going to take this for a drive.
Let's have a look at some of the basic spec and tech of the 2023 Audi S5. You have a 3-liter turbo V6 putting out 349 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque, connected to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Of course, it comes with quattro all-wheel drive. 0 to 60 takes 4.3 seconds. Fuel economy comes in at 21 city, 30 highway, and the price for this one is $68,000.
Starting with front end design of the new 2023 Audi S5 Sportback. The thing is, you can get this with the black optics package, which is definitely something that I would do, because what that does, it blacks out everything that you see being silver or chrome in the front. And for example, it even blacks out the logo in the front and this section right here and these pieces that I'm not so sure about why they added this piece down here. But overall, I think it's a very handsome looking front end. It's a lot more organic and rounded than the previous generation S5s that we had in the mid 2010s. This became a lot more organic and a lot more fluid in its design. Now, what I like about Audi's design language in general is that we have a much more structured and sporty design compared to Volkswagen. Volkswagen and Audi, they always had this similar design language to them. Volkswagen being the more reasonable, more down-to-earth one, while Audi has always been the sportier version of the two. Have a look at the beautiful chamfer that goes underneath this headlight. You have dual chamfers here. I'm gonna zoom in on that so you can see it. And the headlights themselves, brand new for 2020. You do have these LED lights up top looking fantastic. And then inside here, it looks like you have razor blades for the main headlight in the interior, in the internal parts of the headlight, looking very nice. Up top here, this, again, I'm not so sure about the integration of this piece up top, because as you can see, they made it look like it is an air vent up top, like the old rally cars, the Quattro, for example, had 3 slots up top. It's a cool throwback graphically to that, but I do wish that in the S model they would just have opened these up. Further down, we do have a pretty big grille here, but it's not all open. In the middle here is all covered up. The open pieces sits up top here and down low at the bottom. So it would be interesting to see, what if we redesigned this and made a proper bumper in the front end, just to see kind of what that will look like. Another detail I love about the front end of the A5 and the S5 and the RS5 as well is the hood design. So have a look at these creases that fades right in underneath the A-pillar and then going straight down and have a connection to the very corner of the grille up here. Then you have another line, very sharp line as well in the center, going from both sides obviously, and sort of houses the logo in the middle. It doesn't really have a connection to the front end. Yes, it connects to the chrome pieces that we have right here in this Quattro graphics, but other than that, it fades right before it meets the grille, since it doesn't really have a clear connection to the graphics in the front end. Just a small detail that I think the designers did a good job in the front end here. Looking here, this is all fake, which is unfortunate. We don't have any sort of openings in these pieces that should, in my opinion, maybe have some sort of opening to them to add some cooling and some sportiness to the S models. However, you do have the parking sensors integrated here, and you also have the radar for the dynamic cruise controls in both corners of the front end. Coming around to the beautiful side view of the S5, in this case Sportback, you can see the sloping roofline that we have here, and I do love the small creases that we have going all along the A-pillar into this roofline, and then fades right here in the deck. Beautifully done. What do we have when we talk about the wheels and tires? We have 255mm wide tires all around, which is interesting. This is an all-wheel drive, so it puts the power down thanks to all 4 wheels. But I probably would much rather have it be a little fatter in the rear end, just to plant it a little better. And these 19-inch wheels, to me, they don't look too sporty. They feel a little too normal A5 style. So these are wheels that I would probably switch out and probably add some 20s onto this car. One key line, the biggest line that you have in the side view of the S5 Sportback is obviously the shoulder line. You can see just how much sharper it got with the 2020 generation, a lot sharper than we had in the previous generation, and I'm not sure which one I prefer. I do like the subtle sharp line that we have in the previous generation, but this also looks very nice, and it has this fluid motion to it, so it goes up over both axles. And this is of course the typical Audi style, to emphasize the quattro all-wheel drive, to have those curvatures above both the front and the rear axle, looking fantastic. And then you have the S5 logo right here with some silver trim piece. Nothing functional, there's no functional about this, but I do think it adds something to this design. So I would definitely want to keep it there, not something that I would just eliminate in Photoshop, redesign or something like that. I think it looks good. So essentially we do have two key lines, or three if you want to count the roof line. So if you want to sketch this up, you need to consider three lines, and that is the roof line being this curvature stretching further back than we have in the coupe, for obvious reasons, because you do need some more space in the headroom for the rear passengers, meaning that this is going to extend a little further before it goes into a straight line back here. The second line is this sharp line that we talked about, the shoulder line, and then the typical German line is the last line at the bottom right here that carves out some more mass. Volvo does this as well. They have this line cutting through the rear axle, then coming back very subtly in this area here before he fades in this corner before we go into the rear view. Now, one detail that I love about every single S car since the first one I saw, which was the brand new first generation Audi S3, that is this silver piece that we have on the side mirrors. Now, if you go with the black optics package, this is going to be blacked out, but what I would like to ask Audi, I'm not sure if this is possible, but if we can get the black optics package, but still keep just this piece being silver, that to me would be the perfect spec for an Audi Sportback like we have right here. Coming back to the 3/4 rear view, apologies for the leaf blowers that are working around me right now. Hopefully you can still hear me. But what we have here is a very clean design. I much rather have these taillights that we have here than the ones we have in the A4 and the S4, for example. I think these look way more confident. The A4 S4 has some weird curvatures going on here. Up top, we do have the body-colored spoiler, lip spoiler, looking fantastic. Not sure why they didn't make this black, because it wouldn't make sense to bring back the old style, to have some black connection to the lower section in the diffuser up here in the spoiler, but still it looks very good having it be body colored like we have right here. What Audi does so well in their designs is, first of all, they have an amazing lighting design. So both in the front and in the rear, you see some connection here. We still have the 4 separated LEDs and some smaller LEDs up top. Very nicely done, sharp and still dynamic. That's the Audi style. They managed to have some very static looking because they're all squares, but at the same time, the overall pattern of their designs of the headlight, the taillight, make it feel dynamic. Very beautifully done. Overall, this is definitely my favorite view of the new S5 Sportback. Further down, we do have a proper bumper, as you can see, looking fantastic. And this ducktail is just absolutely stunning. We have a small curvature going up here into this top spoiler, and also the trunk itself has this short upswing to it at the very end, creating a super sharp nail spoiler, as Audi call them, up top here, to create this sharp definition of where the car ends up top. Further down, we do have these diffuser. We do have a couple of vent-looking styling here in the plastic, which of course is not functional in this case, but it's okay because it's such a small piece. You have the reflector lights here, and again, this silver trim coming back. So if you go with the black optics package again, this is going to be blacked out, and I think that's going to look a lot better. You do have the typical Audi quad exhaust here. I wouldn't call these specifically bazooka tailpipes. They're not as big as the normal RS tailpipes that we have here, but they're still decently sized, and this V6 actually sounds very good as well. Now, looking at the S5 Sportback from a straight rear view, like you're looking at it from right now, the body, the proportions look pretty planted, but again, having two 55mm wide rear tires, it doesn't help the plantedness of this S5. And that's one of the reasons why I want to have this stick out just a little further and add some meat to the rear tires. But overall, very beautifully done with this line cutting into the lower section, into the bumper, and then houses all the graphics up top, having a clear separation between the top graphics and the lower section, which is the diffuser and the exhaust pipes down here. Classic, elegant design by Audi. Welcome to the beautiful interior of the Audi S5 Sportback, the 2023 model year. And what I like that Audi does here, let's fire it up first of all, is that we have physical buttons for the climate control settings. And you do know that I'm a big fan of that, and I do think a lot of people are still. But we still have a 10.1-inch infotainment screen and a 12.3-inch gauge cluster. And guess what? The gauge cluster still has a nice classic housing to it. So this interior to me has everything I want. The climate control settings being physical and the gauge cluster being all digital, which is totally fine because we still have a nice housing for it. This integration of the gauge cluster though, they might, have done that, could have done that a little better, because this is definitely something that looks like an iPad literally glued onto the dash. But that's okay, I forgive Audi for that. It is still very functional. So let's check this out. Let's go to the home screen. Let's see what we got. Go into vehicle. And here you have all the settings for the vehicle itself. You have dynamic, auto, comfort. You also have this individual setting, which you can set up and configure your car exactly like you want your S5 to drive like. And that comes very handy because you have that individual setting quickly accessible. So when you configure it, you only need to configure it once, hit the individual button, and you have your setting all set up for the car. Going into the map, looking pretty nice as well. It looks like we have the night setting on here now because everything is very dark. But Audi's navigation systems, they have been great for a while now, and this is no different. And it also feels fairly responsive, this screen. So all good so far in the interior. I do love the carbon fiber that we have in this specific S5. It looks nice to have some sort of carbon fiber inside here, so it separates itself a little bit more from the normal A5 Sportback. Further down within this trim piece, you do have two vents that are very easy to adjust, and this goes back to the 70s and 80s designs of vents, so everybody knows exactly how to operate these vents. There is no complications here. You also have the hazard button right there in the middle. I do love this integration, as I said, of the climate control settings, because you can just slide your fingers over this piece. You don't even have to press on them, and it senses where your finger is. You can adjust whatever you want here. So for example, where the air is going to come out from, you have the AC on and off, you have the fan speed, 3-zone climate control, you can set the rear by itself, and you have these dials, very easy to use for the temperature itself. So everything is perfectly laid out, and I also like the integration overall of this style, the outline that we have for this climate control settings, in addition to the 3 levels of heated seats that you have in this car. Moving further down, you do have the Audi Drive Select. So these are the drive modes. Here again, you have the dynamic, auto, comfort, and individual. Dynamic, maybe you can hear that. It opens up the exhaust a little bit more, adding some more of that rumble to this 3-liter V6. It sounds good. You have the auto on and off for the engine. Let's turn that off. You also have the traction control. You have the parking assist, parking sensors, and if you want, you can pop up the cameras. And if you want to turn off the infotainment screen altogether, you have this button at the very end. Moving further down, you do have one USB port. I do wish they put a USB-C in here as well, in addition to this regular USB. And you also have a 12-volt cigarette outlet with the start button located right next to it. 2 cup holders. You have some storage behind the cup holders. And we also have this beautiful perforated leather-wrapped gear selector. So let's put it in reverse. Let's check out these cameras. The reverse camera look very fisheye-y, and it's stretched out a lot, but it does serve the purpose of showing you the obstacles that are behind you. And of course you have the trajectory lines, and in addition to that you also have the 360. So you are all good parking this car. If you can't park this car with all these cameras, then you might need to go back to driving school. You also have the S logo integrated here in the silver piece, looking great. This, in addition to the carbon fiber and the Quattro badge up here, it makes this feel a little bit more special again. Then you have the volume control right here, single little island knob on the side of this carbon fiber. Looking interesting, the location of this. Instead of putting it somewhere up here, they decided to put it down here. Some more storage here, probably for some keys One single key, I think, is the only thing that can fit in here. You have the wireless charging underneath the armrest. Let's open this up and check this out. Not a lot of storage here. You have a bit of a storage next to the wireless charging where you can maybe, just maybe, you can fit one marker and one big pen, and that's pretty much it. Moving on to these seats. I love Audi's seats. Look at the side design that we have. Very organic and stylized. It feels like the interior designer, they took their time and they put in some effort designing these beautiful seats. You also have the S logo in the backrest here with this diamond stitching and the white contrast stitching as well on the sides and in the middle. Beautifully done. Of course, they are both power adjustable. Moving on to the steering wheel. This is a steering wheel that you're going to be familiar with if you've been in Audi's, newer Audis recently. Perforated leather on the sides, normal leather on the top with the white stitching going inside. You have the controls for the heated seats and the radio controls, voice commands on the right spoke. On the left spoke, you do have the controls for the gauge cluster. So this is a gauge cluster that you can configure 100% as you want it to be. So it's very cool. You can even have the entire map taking up pretty much the entire screen, but you always have the speedometer and the tachometer visible in the car. This is one of the best softwares for a gauge cluster right now. That is Audi's software for this, and the configurability that you have with this integration. And of course, in addition, you do have the gauge cluster, which is just a big plus in my book for this gauge cluster. On the left side of the steering wheel, you do have the controls for the lighting settings. And look at this, you have a bit of a storage down here. So if you need a little bit more storage in the center armrest, you still have this thing right here at the side. Up top, we do have a pretty standard sized sunroof, but being how hot is this today? It's only 80 right now. Yesterday was 98 degrees here in Denver. It was just nuts to be out filming, so it's not too bad today. But anyway, I'm gonna keep this closed. Last but not least, yes, of course, we do have a glove box on the Audi S5 Sportback. The whole point of getting a Sportback is that we do have a proper back seat. So I'm gonna jump in here, and this is in fact my driving position. I'm 6'1", and have a look at this. I can even sit like this, weirdly, if I want to, with my legs straight forward and still have plenty of room. I also have plenty of headroom, and this is surprising again, having this coupe-like shape on the roof. Down here you do have the setting for the third zone of the climate control, so you have the heated seats in the back seat as well, in addition to two regular USB ports. Not sure why they don't add USB-Cs in here. We do have a lot of regular USBs, but no USB-Cs. Alright guys, it's about that time. We're taking the Audi 2023 Audi S5 Sportback for a drive. And what do we have under the hood of this thing? We have a 3-liter turbocharged V6 putting out 349 horsepower, 0 to 60 in about 4.3 seconds. Not bad at all. I think that's almost the most it's a very comfortable range to have. 4.3 seconds. It's not going to feel too intense when you're stepping on it, and it also sounds very good. Let's make sure that we have it actually in dynamic, of course. That's what we want to have it in. Honestly, I think Audi is doing some of the best interiors today in any manufacturer, because as I said, we have everything I need, everything I want to see in an interior is right here. The physical buttons, the infotainment screen looking, the integration, yeah, it could be better, but I don't care about that, because we do have a full 12.3-inch gauge cluster that has this housing to it that looks like it could be an Audi housing from the 90s, and that's perfectly fine. Actually, I prefer that to have the old school rounded housing for it. Looks very cool. There's a lot of road work here. I'm gonna try and get out of it right now so we can step on it a little bit and see what this 8-speed automatic connected to this 3-liter turbo V6 can do. So let's go, let's see. Oh yeah. I hope you can hear that noise, because it sounds really good. It sounds fantastic. V6s, they sound a little bit maybe sharper sometimes than V8s. V8s have this more rumble, dark feeling to it. So let's pop it into manual here. Let's go down. There's nobody behind us, nobody in front of us. We're all good. And we're down to first, and let's go. It feels great. As I said, 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds. It's a sweet spot. It's still very fun to drive, but it doesn't scare the crap out of you when you step in on it, if that makes sense. And that's exactly the sweet spot that this Audi is in. I love it. It really pulls, has a lot of torque. I think 369 pound-feet or something close to that. It definitely feels fantastic to drive. Let's check out the almighty turning radius of the 2023 Audi S5 Sportback, and it is no problems at all. Keep in mind, this is a European car. They have very tight roads there, so you need to have a tight turning radius if you're gonna sell your cars over there, and this definitely has that. It's a very fun car to drive. I remember back in the day when the Audi S and RS models, they had the engine sitting almost up by the grill. They have a big V8 up by the grill, and if you ever go shopping, grocery shopping, put all the heavy stuff in the front of the cart and try to steer that thing. And here we have an old S5 just cruising through, a coupe, looking fantastic. The Walter de Silva design, which is spot on. This is nice too. But try to steer that cart when you have all the heavy stuff in front. You can't do it. That's where understeer comes in. That's the definition of understeering when you have it like that. So what Audi did, they moved back the engine in these new generations, and it's such a better driving experience when you have it set up like that than the old RS models that were known to understeer like crazy. Would I pick this one over the RS5? I think the RS5 might be wrong here, but it's about like $80,000, right under, and this goes for suggested MSRP is $55,000, $55,800, and for that price, this is a really good deal, and it does definitely have all the power that you need in this design. I'm not sure which one I would pick. I do love the RS5 design better. I do like specifically the wheels, but wheels are such an easy thing to modify. So you can buy this, and you can just modify the wheels, and you have a very, very nice looking S5 Sportback. Huge thanks to Audi Denver for providing this gorgeous machine for me to review for you guys today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested in this specific S5 Sportback, make sure you go and visit audidenver.com. I'm going to link that down in the description. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.